Thank you all for joining today's webinar. One of the things that I try to pride myself in, or we do as a whole at Build to Rent, is just providing a lot of information. And when we work with our clients, we're always like, we're not going to tell you, hey, this is what's going to happen. This is like we have a magic ball. Our job is to put together the best deals, put it in front of you, be able to give you all the data that you need to make an intelligent decision. And then it'll be up to you to figure out whether this is the dumbest thing ever or whether this makes sense to go ahead and move forward in. But one of the big takeaways that we want to get out of today's meeting is that we put a lot of thought into this. We put a lot of thought into the properties we have, the selection process, the way that we package these deals together. And we're not trying to throw everything at the investor. So everything we have to offer has a rationale, has a reason, and we have to understand the reason and the benefits, then figure out whether it makes sense. So on this call is going to have myself. I'm the founder, CEO, and broker of Build to Rent. And then we have Mario, who's also a broker, and he's actually our local district manager there for Northeast Florida. And so we're definitely going to learn a little bit about his background and learn more about what he's doing in the field. And we're going to be tying in some real life examples of other clients who've recently purchased with us. So I always like starting with the obvious question. We're all looking to real estate for a particular reason. And a lot of times we're looking at our wealth. And so if you're looking to tie the two together, you're in the right place, because 90% of all millionaires became millionaires through real estate. And so one of the common questions is, well, if real estate is the clearest path to becoming a millionaire, the question is, why isn't everybody a millionaire? Why doesn't everyone just buy properties? And so this is when we start figuring out what the objections are. A lot of times it's a lack of education. A lot of times it's a lack of having a long-term strategy to maybe save up the money to buy it, to know how to deploy capital. But ultimately, number one factor is fear. Is people who are concerned about XYZ about real estate. And so a lot of what we're spending our time today is talking about the facts, the data, the historical trends, what's happening in the marketplace, to hopefully alleviate some of those fears that you have today, because I'm passionate about helping make more millionaires. I know Mario is as well. And it's our mission to help as many people as possible. And we do so through education. So my background is I used to work in corporate sales, started a company where we helped a lot of out-of-state investors do a lot of flips, built that out to a larger company. And then it became very clear that new construction just made more sense compared to going the rehab route. And about 5 years ago, I switched my business model to now be 100% the new construction space. And we've seen a lot of benefits through that. And I'm proud to say that today, 80% of our inventory sold comes from repeat buyers. Our average buyer will buy at least 4 properties from us. So that's a testimony to us, one, having good products, being good people, but ultimately the performance justifies itself. And it's one of the reasons we've been able to grow and expand. Mario, who recently joined our group. Well, Mario, I'll let you go ahead and share your background and what you're doing.
Yes, it's funny. It's been a while, but you're still saying recently. We have different backgrounds. If you compare, you've always been more on the side of the action, where the investor meets the product and what the money matters. For me, I'm lucky that I've seen also the other side, aside from the builder, the making of the product, the many steps that it takes in order to, being able to put a structure on the ground. I mean, so we have two very interesting, points of view that converge, and this is why I think, our mix was a success, because again, this is how we can ultimately, help someone that is really serious about investing in real estate.
Absolutely. And so a lot of what we do is we're very value oriented, and essentially we got to provide value to 2 groups. So one is on the development side, where their developers are type A personalities. They like being on the field, they like swinging the hammer. And we work with several developers. The smallest one builds 25 a year. The largest one is the largest builder in the country. So we work with several different builder class, but what they all have in common is the same thing. What they do best is building. That's their core competency. That's what they do better than anyone else. And so what they don't do well then is the marketing, the packaging of products for investors, and really providing a streamlined approach to help investors identify, purchase, and manage their next property. And so what we do is we package these products together. We're often able to get heavy discounts because we're selling in bulk. We're often able to package deals together that are more attractive for investors. And when I first started out, I had to go out and find these builders. Now it's the opposite. Now what's happening is they're reaching out to me directly, and I'm scrutinizing their deals to make sense, to figure out whether it makes sense for our investors. The value that we provide our investors is really straightforward. We start with a packaged product already. Now, when we say packaged, we mean that most of our inventory is scheduled to be completed within 3 months. So we're not waiting a long time. We often get certain builders' incentives that are packaged together, and we have a whole team in place, property management, insurance, title, you name it. And it's a tried and true system that many of our clients have used on a repeat basis. So in short, we help you identify the right property as quickly as possible while reducing the brain damage compared to other investment vehicles. And so over the years, we've been able to grow and expand. And one of the key things that makes us different than other, let's say, referral networks or other groups out there is we're actually a licensed brokerage. And we have over 14 members throughout the state of Florida who actually will show up for the inspection, will be there in person to do the walkthrough. We actually know our communities because this is where we live. And so we are spread out. We're in the communities that we serve. What that also means is that we're going to also take the blame if things go wrong. We're not going to ship it off and say, hey, that was the developer, or, hey, that was whatever. Like, no. If we recommended that partner, if we suggested that path, ultimately, we're going to be with you throughout the entire throughout that entire journey. And we're there to help you navigate and troubleshoot it. But we're not like living in Colorado, sending you properties from Florida. Like, no, this is where we're from. This is where we are. This is our home. And this is also where we invest. So I do want to throw it to Mario just to speak briefly about why our investors are even interested in Florida.
Yeah, I think that most people know. I mean, we're obviously going to talk about it, but I think that most people know. It's all over the news. I mean, the last time I checked, I think we're still getting about 1,000 people migrating to the state of Florida in a daily basis. So that's 500,000 every year. We're number one when it comes to migration. So we're still receiving a great deal of people, again, every day. And this much we know because of driver's licenses and change of addresses and purchase of homes and what have you. Most of it, I think it has to do with the economy. Most people also discovered that our prices are much better, well-balanced than other states. So there's, Florida has made a great deal of decisions when it comes to employment and many other laws that are keeping the entire, market stable. One of the things that I think it makes for investors, Florida very attractive is the fact that Florida is a very landlord-friendly state. And maybe we can cover some of that at a later time. There is no rent control. And so on. So the properties are still affordable, and overall the market is stable. So this is basically what an investor looks for.
And if we dive deeper into the data, Mario, this is exactly what we're talking about. The population
Right.
has boomed, and I always joke that Florida before the air conditioner is a miserable place to live. But ever since we created the air conditioner, we see a hockey stick in population growth, and the gray bars represents recession. And so Florida's population has been able to grow regardless of the economy. If you ask people, hey, if you had to leave your state, where would you go? Like, Florida is going to be it. And like you mentioned, the weather, the climate, all the activities. It's a newer state as far as our infrastructure is very well. We're very well funded. We actually have a surplus of tax revenue,
Yes.
and we're seeing it grow with our gross domestic product. So our industries are growing. We're actually becoming a lot more mature. So now we're hearing stories of a lot of fintech companies coming down to Florida. A lot of healthcare centers are coming down. And if you're trying to attract top talent, you got to figure out where they're already moving to, because you're not going to get someone to move from Chicago to Connecticut and try to recruit them for a job. You try to recruit them to come to Florida, they're already coming here anyway. And then one of the things I always like looking at is we have the demand for housing gone up with the population. The state's productivity and income wise is going up as well. And that's the demand side. So we got to also watch the supply side. And what we've seen is basically we have never returned back to the peaks of '06. So in fact, after '06, we've seen a severe shortage of just builds going up. So as population is shooting up, we've seen that we have not replaced or added enough new homes to the market to replace them. And if you look at the chart there at the bottom, you'll see that since 2021, we started to see housing starts decline. Now, housing starts is whenever permits are issued and construction begins. So since 2001, we've seen a decline in new housing being constructed. Meanwhile, our population and economy is going up. So we're likely going to start entering another tightening cycle of housing supply.
Yeah, this right here is a very good point, because I remember talking to a client not too long ago, and he had a little trouble understanding, because his fallback was basically saying, but I see so much construction going on. And then I have to explain, yes, but you're forgetting that this data basically means the amount of permits or new houses, per capita, per the amount of people that we have. And since we haven't stopped taking, so many new residents, we don't seem to be able to build fast enough. That's basically what the graph is telling us. Because if you drive around, you're thinking, yes, there's a lot of construction going on, but trust me when we tell you that it's not enough.
It's not enough, and the number of new starts is declining.
Yeah.
So there isn't another wave of inventory coming. Like whatever we're seeing now is basically it. We're likely to go back to a shortage. So a lot of what we do is, now that we say, okay, all right, Florida's a big state, you can't just invest anywhere in Florida. You have to be very selective and strategic as to where you look. So as far as where you look to invest. So generally, our rules of thumb to determining good markets to invest in is areas where the land is cheap and the rents are high. So areas where land is expensive doesn't work. Areas where rent is low doesn't work. So it has to be that perfect balance. And any opportunity that comes across our desk, we're going to run it through a pro forma and make sure the numbers measure out. And typically, that's the clearest path to figure that out. The other part is we like to be on the path of prosperity. These are areas where the growth is obvious. The growth is going up, things are being built, and there's activity taking place there. We're not looking to invest in areas that have low desirability. We're looking for places that have high desirability, but we want to catch it on the come up. So we're catching it when it's cheaper so we can ride the wave of appreciation. The other thing that we look for to determine the areas that will see the most amount of appreciation is we like to see like where the major cities already are and where is it extending to. So for example, we love Southwest Florida, right between Tampa and Naples, two much more expensive markets. Orlando doesn't make any sense, but a little bit north of there. In Ocala, a little bit south of there in Sebring, makes a lot of sense. Jacksonville, downtown Jacksonville, doesn't make a lot of sense, but go a little bit south to the east, and now you start finding pockets where the development's taking place. It's all about finding these markets that are premium, that are A-class communities, but they're on the come up. I mean, they're not 100% built out yet, means you can buy it at a discount today compared to what it will be worth in the future. And like we mentioned, areas we don't like. So we don't like areas where they're too far along in the developmental curve. So what I mean by that, too far along, either it's way too nice and the price is too extreme, or it's too far in that developmental curve and it's no longer nice. Now it needs to be gentrified. Now it looks run down. We're not trying to reinvent a community. We're not trying to swing things around. Generally, what happens is people can identify the areas that will be gentrified, but what they get wrong is the timing of when it will happen. And so we're not part of that timing game. We want to be in areas where it's very obvious. We don't like areas that are too invested in tourism, or tourism is their major industry. So that would definitely be the Panhandle. A lot of the Panhandle is all around the beaches, all around the resorts, around the hotels. and we don't like certain sections of Orlando and Miami that are too tourism centric, or even Key West. We want to be in areas that have high growth and they don't have older inventory. So when you're in a community that has a lot of older inventory, that older inventory acts like a wet blanket over the housing market, where you can fix your house up, you can do whatever, but when you pull the comps, your property is going to get grouped in with older, less desirable properties, and that's always going to bring your value down. So we don't like that. We like to be in areas where everything is new, everything's being developed, and hopefully people are building nicer properties than the one you're buying in that area. So here's a quick map of some of the areas we like. Again, Panhandle crossed out, Miami and Broward County crossed out. But then we like the areas of Southwest Florida, which includes Palm Coast, Northport, Lehigh, Cape Coral. We like areas of Ocala, including Marion Oaks, and some of those other communities adjacent to Ocala. We like areas in Jacksonville, including Palm Coast as well, which is about 45 minutes south of there. And we like the areas south of Orlando as well, which is more the Sebring area. So these are the areas we like, and we're very selective as to where we pick. And the key here is that we'll get asked, like, hey, do you have anything in Miami? And like, your land cost for a duplex is going to be $600K.
Yeah.
Let alone building on it, you're going to be
Yeah.
at 1.2 million for the same rent that you can get in another market. It makes no sense. So, Mario, since you're from Jacksonville, I think it's most appropriate for you to explain the Jacksonville market. Tell us about your backyard.
Yeah, Jacksonville, as you can see, it has a little bit of everything. I mean, yeah, definitely we have the beaches, but I think it's some of the things that it's most important is the job opportunities. That's what I really look into. Obviously, we have the ports, the Jacksonville ports. Most people don't know that most of the merchandise that comes through Jacksonville, it services all the way through the Panhandle. So this is why Jacksonville, it's your version of the Miami ports, if you will. So it has to do with the ability of being able to offload merchandise and serve almost 1/3 of the state, from that point. So this is why, Jacksonville is in the map. It's been for the most, last 20 years or so, kind of like a sleepy town in the sense that, most people didn't realize, how much of an opportunity Jacksonville was. But this is why we're here now, because it's just simply happening. I took the time to download some of the data to show the process of both the migration of the, thousands of people that are moving to Jacksonville, and at the same time, the amount of houses. So for instance, this one right here, we're definitely growing, and we've been growing since 2006, 2008, exponentially. I mean, the numbers don't lie. You can see it right there. It's palpable because now you're seeing other smaller cities there are outside Jacksonville, in which you can see the activity. You can, again, you can see the amount of people. However, when it comes to permits, not enough. And yes, I see that people see most of this construction going on, but again, once we look at the numbers and the amount of permits, it's just simply we're not building fast enough. It's just what's happening. So quads are these quads that we have, and we're going to talk a little bit about them later as well. These are a very unique opportunity. It's very hard for a city to approve permits for a quad. That's the first thing that we want to keep in mind. So we're extremely lucky that we have this opportunity, especially that the existing quads in Jacksonville are very old.
Not only that, but the fact that you can, with one loan, get 4 units.
Correct.
It's very powerful. You have one roof over all 4 units. So instead of, if you had 4 single-family homes and you needed to replace a roof, that's 4 different roofs.
Yeah.
When the Quadplex is all one roof.
Yeah. It makes it more attractive, not only for the investor, for the lenders as well. And what you have to see it is that the level of risk is a lot lower. I mean, it's not necessarily rocket science. When you only own one unit, if you don't have that one tenant, then the unit is producing zero money. So the odds of having the same situation on a quadruplex are just simply less. So the odds are that when one tenant moves out, then you're only missing essentially a quarter of the investment, but not the 100%. So this is why historically quads are just simply more attractive. And as a product itself, what we pay for the square footage is a whole lot less than what we would for a single family. So again, it makes it more attractive for investors, but also lenders tend to get more creative when it comes to financing, because again, we all understand the advantages of a quad. So think about it, FHA, V8, everyone, it's able to finance a quadruplex up to 4 units. That's basically what it means.
Right, and the income from the properties can actually go towards your income to help support the more expensive purchase there as well.
Correct, that's the main idea.
So
Now,
so everybody
this is
wants a quad. What happens when they start searching for one?
this is exactly this is a screenshot of our MLS here in Jacksonville, and that is exactly what you're seeing. Units that were built as late as 1945. I mean, unfortunately, that is what we have. I mean, it's not even a matter of location, because I mean, it would be hard to find a bad location for a quadruplex. But what these units have is just simply, they're just simply very, very small and very, very old. And unfortunately, they're going to be in need of repairs. So it's not an exaggeration. And I mean, you could tell, I mean, what the prices are, you know, almost $2 million, 1.8, 1.6. And again, these units are just simply going to call for a lot of repairs throughout their history. It's just simply what's left.
Right, and they're expensive. And and this is worth stating, we're licensed, real estate agents, brokers throughout the whole state of Florida. We can sell on-market deals if we wanted to.
Yeah,
So if one
absolutely.
of our investors showed us, hey, I think this is a better deal, we'll sell it to you. We have
If
we
you
have
really
no
want it.
problem selling you the best deal we can.
Yeah,
We
but
also
there's
know,
better ways, no doubt. Yes, when you divide the price by the square footage, that's when you realize it's just simply a bit too expensive. And then keep in mind the future repairs that that a unit that is 60, 70 years old is going to need.
and what we're seeing, I mean, this is Jacksonville, but we see the same thing throughout the whole state of Florida. You start looking at quadplexes, and what you'll find is either single family homes that were split up, illegally into 4 units. You'll find inventory built in the 60s and 70s, usually in not the nicest area either, usually with the worst kind of tenants. And so a part of the reason why is, you mentioned it, they don't get permitted, and if land is approved for multifamily housing, they're going to want to put a 16-plex on the property, an apartment building there. And most times when a developer builds something like that, they're going to want to hold on to it. They're not going to build that to sell it, which is why it doesn't get released to the market.
Yeah, and it's also important for the viewers to understand. Thank you. That is the image that I needed. We've done the numbers. So when we tell someone, listen, this property is a little bit too expensive, it's because we're taking into consideration not only what you're paying for, but what we can get potentially out of it. So we're looking at the rental rate of that area, whichever area the property sits on. Because I mean, it matters not what the rental return is on a property near the beach. If you're looking at a property that is, say, it's in downtown Jacksonville, that just simply wouldn't work. So we have to look at the immediate area in which the property is, and we want to figure out what is the normal rental rate per square feet. Whether the property is a duplex or a quad, that's some of the data that we have to look at. And then Alvin mentioned that what we're looking for is a balance. We're obviously trying to get at a reasonable price, but at the same time we're trying to find that that happy medium, that happy spot in which we can rent the property and then have some cash flow. So ultimately, we look at all these properties all the time. This is a sample that we did with 3 other ones that you just saw. And the numbers, basically, they speak for themselves. A matter of fact, all 3 of them, as a result, are in a negative cash flow. And that's not even knowing what kind of repairs these units are going to need. So this is only our best guesstimate of okay, if we purchase the unit for, say, $1.8 million, and it has 4 small 2 bedrooms, and it could be rented for this amount, what are we taking after taxes and mortgage and insurance and so on? And unfortunately, the numbers are negative. Somebody would almost have to dump half of the entire investment up front if they wanted to hope for any cash flow in a monthly basis. But again, the return on investment, it wouldn't be there. So that's something that we're going to talk about in the rest of the webinar
Yeah,
as well.
in order for this to cash flow, you would have to put like a 50% down payment, which again, it's like, what's the point? And you
Yeah,
know, they're overpriced. And when you look at it, so most deals, if you attach a 7 or an 8% interest rate, it's not going to work.
right.
So, I mean, we're talking about quadplexes today, but this applies to a duplex or single family home as well. If you
Same
put
thing.
a 7 or 8% interest rate on that property, it's not going to cash flow. So
Right.
when you look at the age, so we're actually, when we ran the performa, we're actually using the same repair percentage that we would use for our new builds, even though we know it's going to be a lot higher, right, for these older properties.
Absolutely.
We're using their stated rental income for our numbers here, which again, they could be lying to us, right? Most times they fub the numbers to make it look more attractive. We use their numbers, still doesn't work. There's also no incentives attached to this either. There's nothing. It's just you just negotiate on price, and that's like it. And you would have to negotiate a lot of a
Yeah.
discount to make these numbers work, and they're all completely negative. They also have no warranty. Some of these are actually not even in nice areas. One of them was a converted duplex to a quadplex.
Yeah.
So who knows the permit issues that they're going to have here as well. And you're
Yeah,
going to
we
have,
noticed that. Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
and you're going to pay a
this one right
lot.
here, the 605, and the reason why the number it has a question mark, it's because that's the numbers that they gave us. But we did our sincere look around, and we're doubtful that that's what the property generates. So that's why I want to put a question mark on it. And again, obviously, when someone is trying to sell you a unit that was built in 1962, they're not telling you what repairs you're going to need in the next 5 or 10 years. They're just simply not.
Right.
And what would they? It's not their job. But you could do your own research, and it's something that we look. We look at how old is the roof and how old is the structure, and so on. But there's only so much that we can anticipate. And what Alvin was saying is we're going to plug in a percentage that we think that the unit is going to need, give it whether it's a 3 or 5% repair. And that's
But we,
us
we kept it
guessing
the
our
same.
best,
No,
but
no, so I kept it the same as we have for our new builds.
yeah,
So the same measurements, which obviously is wrong. The other thing to think about is
yeah,
no warranty. You're going to pay a lot more for insurance as well, and your
sure.
utilities are going to be a lot higher as well. A lot of these quadplexes have window air conditioning units, so tenants are going to pay a lot more in electricity compared to central air.
Yeah,
So, I mean, those were the bad examples, right? That's what's on the market. That's what your generic corny agent would be able to provide you from the MLS. And again, we can sell you that garbage. We don't recommend it, but
yeah.
we could sell you on market deals. But clearly, you know, we decide we want to be better, provide the best options for our investors. And so one of the things is just picking better locations.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, Mandarin. This is this I know very well. It's my town. So everyone loves Mandarin because if you see, it's a bit of a peninsula right here, right next to the river. It's that zip code that you see there, 32223. Very well established neighborhood. Lots of green, lots of ponds. The houses are, it's just fantastic. So a Mandarin, it speaks for itself. I don't think it really needs a presentation. We are extremely lucky to be able to have and to convince basically the city to allow quads in this location. I mean, again, this is a one in a lifetime opportunity to be able to find an investment like this on an area such as Mandarin.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that we are near the St. Johns River, but Jacksonville is actually like most of Florida is pretty flat. Jacksonville gets pretty hilly. So
Mhm.
none of these properties are in a flood zone. They're completely secure from that. And these areas, the neighbors around are all single family homes, a lot of them with pools. A lot of them are, you know, areas that you would walk around your neighborhood, areas that you would like I would feel comfortable with my wife walking around there. These are nice area. And the southeast part of Jacksonville is closer to the beach. It's also where there's hospitals throughout Jacksonville, but the really nice one is in that area. Also, the nicer shopping mall is down here as well. So the people here, if you spend time in that area, have a greater pride of ownership. They're owners. They live there. Their kids go to school there. It just feels better, and it's worth stating that Jacksonville is not a uniform city. So you have to know where you're investing in Jacksonville. You have to know those areas well, which is there's some areas we would say, hey, let's try to avoid.
True, true,
This is
true. Like every other town. You're absolutely right.
yeah.
Yes, I remember when you mentioned not investing in downtown. That there is an explanation behind it. And it has to do with the age of downtown and the type of construction. Houses have zero insulation, I can tell you that, in downtown. So they sure they are pretty, but they cost a great deal of money to maintain. And I don't think that's the direction that you want to go. I mean, is there an investor that buys a property in downtown, misled by a realtor or an agent that says this is an opportunity? Sure, we see it all the time. But do we recommend it? No, because again, it all has to do with not just how pretty the unit looks, but where is it and can it produce? That's the two things that we want to keep an eye on. But you're right about Jacksonville. St. John's River, the largest river in Jacksonville. Jacksonville, the most desired area, it's precisely right here, which is east of the river and obviously 20 minutes or so from the ocean. So that little patch of land, it's where most of the developments are, and that's the area that we obviously recommend. South of downtown, and again, obviously, when possible, you want to be east of the river. This is where everything is mostly new. So, I mean, and again, it's palpable. You don't have to take my word for it. Just get in the car, drive it around, and you'll see what I mean. You're probably going to want to invest in property once you see all this development happening. Again, the rest of the downtown, very old and properties that will need a lot of repairs. Owners are super proud, but again, not the place in which you want to invest. You want to travel a little bit south, just like Alvin said, and you want to locate something in either Mandarin, Julington Creek. These areas are very well established, and the numbers are there. The numbers are solid.
And it's worth noting that Jacksonville is the largest city by landmass in the country. So it's a big city, but it's actually very easy to drive around. So you're not dealing with congestion the way you would in Tampa, Orlando, or Miami. It's actually very easy to drive around. So from here, being in Southwest, the airport is in North Jacksonville. You can still get there in 40 minutes. So from here, you can still get to downtown in 20 minutes. So even though we're saying we're going to be moving away, in a city like Jacksonville, being 15, 20 minutes away from downtown is better than being 5 minutes away.
True. True.
And so with these communities, obviously we built a really nice, we have really nice quadplexes. Mara, can you walk us through some of the features?
Yes, what you see is these units are designed with an investor in mind. So for instance, you will find no carpet on any of them. These are vinyl floors all throughout. Okay. Stainless steel appliances. I mean, it is incredible the kind of package that we was able to put together. Granite countertops, everything, it is absolutely brand new and top of the line. So again, I wanted to mention the fact, for instance, of the many things that we've been thinking, putting ourselves in the shoes of an investor. What would investors typically like? There are absolutely no wasted spaces anywhere. Okay, I've seen plenty of the drawings for different properties in which there is plenty of space that could have been used in a different way. These units were designed with investors in mind. Every inch, every square foot of the house is designed to be utilized by someone who needs to rent a unit.
Right. So it's a very functional design, and the tenants, like renters, want to pay for what they need. A homeowner doesn't mind paying for extra things and whatever, but our renter is looking like, hey, what do I need in a property? And that's what I'm willing to pay for. And so what happens is a lot of times when we see these types of developments taking place, people tend to overbuild. They build too nice of a property. And the only way to justify that really extravagant, top of the line, over the top property is to jack up the rents to try to compensate for it. And so they almost build something to brag to people about, not actually the raw numbers themselves. Not only that, but like Jacksonville has a very strong rental demand, very strong rental population. People are looking for these kind of rental units, but they're going to want something that's functional and meets their budget. So if you look at the rents that we have, some of them are, as low as 1,600. Some of them are 1,780 in that range. That's something that's affordable for most people. They can afford it. Once you start chasing for that 2,600, 2,800 range, and you go for those really like expensive condo apartment style, it's like, yeah, somebody can rent that, today maybe, but then when that tenant moves out, are you going to find another tenant willing to pay that much? Or how long would it take? So we instead have properties that are designed for the largest population, which is more suited towards that affordable workforce housing, where there's a shortage of properties, definitely a shortage of properties that look this good in that rental rate. And that matters because regardless of the economy, you're gonna find people who can afford this and are gonna be fighting to move in a place like this.
Yes. Yeah, rent's still very, very affordable in Jacksonville for sure. We don't have the same situation that Miami has or other towns in which, the rental rate it's astronomical. In Jacksonville is still very, very affordable. It's what I'm trying to say.
So all of our properties being brand new constructions. And again, this is something you're not going to get from an MLS deal or from a resale property.
Right.
They come from a 1 to 10 warranty. So it's 1 year bumper to bumper, which we always say this, like when we look at we include repair costs in our performance. Theoretically, this is theoretical.
There should be
Membership
zero.
zero, right? I always make that joke because either the tenant broke it, which is their fault, you have a security deposit, or you're gonna say that it's the builder's fault and they got to cover it with their warranty.
That's
Uh,
it.
so that's the bumper to bumper. The 2 years is anything that conducts electricity, air, or water is where you get the 2 year for. So electrical, your air vent, or your piping is all gonna have your 2 years. 10 years is gonna be structural, right? So the concrete block, the truss, the roofs, etc. So the point is you have someone to call, someone to report if the property has an error that needs to be corrected. And again, you're not going to get this in any other property. It's an extra layer of assurance. And
Sure.
then, so one of the things that we mentioned before is just how impossible it is to find a new construction quadplex. And the way that we're able to basically provide these quadplexes is these were purchased at a master plot land. It was subdivided for these quadplexes. And then with that massive amount of land purchased, being subdivided lots means you own the lot, but it is part of a greater community, a community that is centered for investors. So we're not going to see any type of restrictions come around saying, well, we want to have like, no, this was designed for investors. And there's also a lot that comes with it that actually helps lower some of your costs. Mario, can you walk us through some of those items?
Yeah, absolutely. Very good point. Because I figured if I was an investor and probably wouldn't understand that part that you just mentioned. These communities are designed for investors, so that there is no minimums or maximums when it comes to rental units. There are just simply none of that because they're designed exclusively for investors that want to purchase a quad. You can buy multiple buildings if you like, and that's basically the whole idea. But that's essentially what it means. Now, there is an HOA, and every building that you own pays a certain amount of HOA. The list that you're looking at is everything that is included on it, which it comes from the garbage repair, from the landscaping, absolutely every bit of attention on these communities. Some of these communities have water pond, and they have pet stations, the mailboxes, the fire hydrants, absolutely all that. It's taken care of with your monthly HOA fees. I want to point out that don't expect anything super fancy in these communities because again, yes, swimming pools and fitness centers and pool tables, it's all pretty, but it takes away money from your investment. So this is why these communities are designed precisely with none of these items. Okay, what we're looking for is practicality. We want to be able to put the less expensive possible unit, a brand new unit, so that we can guarantee a tenant on it for the long time, and that way you can have a return for sure. So this is why on this list you're not going to see the taking care of swimming pools and like I mentioned fitness centers and pool tables and free Wi-Fi, because again we don't have it in this community. It's designed with that purpose, with just simply a investor in mind.
And it's worth noting, a lot of these costs would be costs that you would normally incur anyway. It just happens to be part of the HOA, so they take care of that. That's another big benefit.
All right.
And so, Mario, we kind of we're both at build to rent. We spend a lot of our time differently. So you work with a lot of our investors, actually helping them identify the right property, walking them through the process of purchasing the property, and then you're actually there for the inspection, for the closing, right? The turnover of the keys. You are their go-to guy, boots on the ground there in Jacksonville. I spend a lot of my time negotiating with builders, right? Beating them up, fighting with them, wrestling with them. And so what I'm trying to do is I always want to get a list of inventory products that investors can get excited behind, that can move the needle that they can't find anywhere else. And that's what I spend all my time talking about with them. And so there are a couple of challenges that come up. And so one of the things that if you look at the data historically, you'll see that cap rates have been basically the same for the last X number of years. Prices went up, right? Rents went up. Cool, they map out. What's gotten beat up a lot has been cash on cash, which is basically return on your investment. And the big reason for that is the cost of capital. We talked about this earlier. When you put a deal together and then you punch in 7 or 8% interest rate, your deal's not going to work out. Right? It's not going to be a good deal. And so when I'm working with these builders and I'm fighting on these spreadsheets to try to make the numbers work, and I got to go back and make this a reality, what we found is the best use of giving the investor an advantage to have a home run of an investment is to help them buy down the rates. And so in this case, the seller is contributing 7 points towards the buyer's interest rate buy down. And with your help, we're contributing a little bit, we can get the interest rate down to a 4.7 or 4.25% interest rate. That's a game changer. It's like you're going back in time 3 or 4 years and getting the interest rates you should have gotten back then. But now all of a sudden these deals look good again. We also include 2 years free property management, which the most critical years when you're buying a property is the first 2 years. If you can cash flow those first 2 years, you're always going to cash flow there afterwards. The reason is you're going to have a fixed mortgage for that time period, right? So your costs are going to be the same. And your increase in your rental rate is going to go up about 4% every single year. So if you do well those first 2 years, you're going to have future higher income coming in from those properties. So your cash flow over time will only get up even higher. So 2 years free property management is a game changer. And then what also happens is we have some investors that are concerned, hey, can we really get those rental rates? Hey, can I really get those numbers? What happens if it takes longer to rent out? Then I want to be negative cash flow for those months. So instead of letting our investors be worried about that, we said, you know what? We'll put our money where our mouth is. We'll go ahead and put together a 3-month rental rate guarantee. This means if you close on the property and that's not rented, you'll still get rental income as if you had a tenant in that property for 3 months. Now, if we can't get someone in there in 3 months, there's a bigger problem going on.
Right.
But essentially what we're doing is saying we know we can get someone in there that time period. And so we know it's not going to cost us much. So we'll put our money where our mouth is and we'll go ahead and get you covered from that standpoint. So here are some of the details with regards to our loan options, and they need to come directly from our preferred lender. We have a unique loan strategy that we have where essentially the lender is contributing towards your buy down, which is why it needs to come from the preferred lender. And we have both a 10-6, which means it's a fixed for 10 years, and then it goes to a variable interest rate thereafterwards, which this is our most popular plan. We also have a 30-year fixed rate mortgage as well. Both loans are advertised over 30 years, so still 30 years. Just one is fixed for 10 years, then it turns to an adjustable mortgage. So the reason why the one to the far left is the most popular one is it offers the best interest rate. And most investors are looking to do a cash out refi every 5 to 10 years anyway. So most investors who are looking to recycle their funds and buy more properties quicker, they're looking to tap into that equity to buy more properties. So you're like most investors don't hold on to that same loan for more than 10 years. So they choose, let me be as aggressive as possible and get the best interest rate. So that tends to be our most popular plan. We have various different options for you. You can pick and choose, and we can work with the lender to figure out which loan product works best for you. We also have owner-occupied loans, and these are something that Mario has worked with a number of investors to utilize. Is we're able to help owner-occupied investors, people who are looking to essentially house hack, live in the property and have the rental income pay for the mortgage, right? So they have a much lower housing expense. We're able to get investors into these products with just 3% down, which is massive. That's insane. So we have 3% down and 5% down options. Similarly, it could be a 10-6 ARM or a 30-year finance. The most popular one is getting a 3.99% interest rate, which is massive. It's incredible. And so you're essentially securing $1 million property with peanuts, right? So, and if you think about the amount that the tenant's paying down your mortgage, if you think about that, you're able to now take advantage of the appreciation of this property. And after a year, you can move out of the property and rent out all 4 units. And you can decide to go buy another quadplex and do it all over again. If I wasn't married and my wife would allow me, that's exactly what I would do. Unfortunately, my wife has a very high standard and she's not gonna get there. But it's what I would do as quickly as possible. So hopefully you guys have better spouses. I shouldn't say that.
No,
That
but
doesn't
this
sound
right
right.
here, on a serious note,
Yeah.
this right here is super vital. The loan makes you or breaks you. It's exactly what you were saying a minute ago. The same identical unit, even with the same projections when it comes to rental rates, if you plug in a 7 or close to an 8% interest rate, it may not cash out. Or will be a forced situation like the type of investor that falls in the wrong hands that ends up putting, like we mentioned before, half of the entire investment up front just to get a little bit of cash at the end of the month. We don't think that makes sense. The name of the game is simple. We want to try to put as less money as possible on each investment. Hopefully we can repeat the investment at a later time. And we're trying to cash out, obviously. So there's a lot of terms that a lot of investors are familiar with, but if you happen to be a new person and you're not quite all familiar, don't worry about it. That's something that we can talk about at a later time. And we can explain what it means when you hear cash flow, cash on cash, rental return. At first, it may seem complicated, but it really isn't. What basically means is that we have to look at the relationship in which for instance, how much cash initially we bring to the table versus, what the equity it's going to be at a later time. Given the choice, I'd rather invest on multiple properties because I know that I'm guaranteed to gain an equity on several of them in the future, rather than putting all my money just into one building. That's basically the overall message.
Right. So we have a conventional loans, obviously, for investors. We have owner-occupied loans. Then we also have DSCR loans. Now, DSCR loans are perfect for individuals that have a high debt-to-income ratio, or that have maybe they own a business, or they have another income situation where they're not able to show as much to get a conventional loan. Now, the benefit of a DSCR loan is the lender is essentially looking at the property itself first to determine whether or not you get a loan approval. This is very common in the commercial space, where in the commercial space, they'll analyze the deal, the property, and then the third party is you. Same thing happens here. And so what they're looking for is they're looking for the debt to income ratio. And they're looking at like, hey, what's the rent? And can that service the mortgage of that loan? And so all of our property, well, we have not had a problem with someone applying for a DSCR loan and didn't get approved because of the property's performance. So this is a great way where essentially your income, your personal situation doesn't matter as much. And so this has been a very popular plan, and we're still able to buy down the rates on these DSCR loans. So it's been very beneficial. What we have here all the way to the left is our most popular plan. And it's worth noting that a DSCR loan is going to be about a full interest rate above what a conventional loan would be. So it definitely does help a lot to be able to get that rate buy down. Otherwise, the number would be a whole lot higher. And then we have several other options here, depending on how much you want to put down. If you want to be a little more aggressive, you can do 40% down, you get a different kind of deal. And this is also great for our international investors as well, where if you are if you don't have income being produced in the United States, you can still buy a property here. Typically, you would have to pay all cash. And so once you pay all cash, most investors are like, hey, maybe it's not a good idea. So we walked them through buying the properties through a foreign national loan. And so this is a way to still get approved for a quadplex like what we have here without having income within the country, which is, again, very popular for our international buyers. And the one you see there at the bottom is the most popular loan product we have. So when we dived a bit deeper into the property management benefits, we have two main benefits. And a lot of times I get asked, hey, Alvin, why does a property manager want to agree to do 2 years free property management? And the short answer is that this investment product, like the house itself, is the best type of product for that property manager to manage. Let me say this another way, is these properties have the highest rental rate in their markets. They're going to be low maintenance. They have a warranty department company that can help them service the repairs of the property. They're going to require a lot less maintenance. The tenants are generally happier living in a property. They're the first one in there, and they're going to have the most demand to be rented quicker. So in short, their job is a lot easier. And so when the property manager can get a lot of the same type of properties, now it becomes more uniform as well, because they already know the paint colors. They already know the type of flooring. They know the properties. They know the rental rates because they're managing a lot of these properties. And their goal is to do such a good job in the first 2 years that you will stay with them afterwards, after that year 3. And it's worth noting it's free for 2 years, and then it goes to the 8% interest rate. 8% interest rate is still lower than the national average, which is closer to like 10 or 12%. So it's still a great deal overall. And keep in mind, they already have photographs of the property. And so we spent a lot of time focusing on how do we reduce vacancies and turnovers in the properties. And so we do a lot of great work here, and we have a couple of stats to share with you. The majority of our units have an approved applicant within the first 2 weeks of the owner taking over. So what that means is a lot of times our investors are closing with properties with tenants already inside of them. And we actually have some options to actually buy properties with tenants already placed, but a lot of them are moved in pretty quickly. And this happens because we can generally begin marketing the property before you even take over ownership. That makes it a lot quicker. And we list it as coming soon. So if another tenant was looking at another property, they can now get referred to your property if they were unable to get that one. Our average tenant stays in the property over 3 years. I believe the actual number is 3.5 years. The tenants tend to be happy in the spaces, and a lot of that has to do with the locations where the property is located. So it's a good property, yes, but secondarily, these are in locations that are less transit oriented. This is why Mara and I were talking about not being in downtown. That's the area people will come for a year and leave the next. In the more suburban areas that are near the good schools, near good transport, people tend to stick a lot longer. And the average turnover, this is how quickly we get a property ready to be listed again, is just 1 week. That's a pretty fast turnover. And that happens because the turn team already knows the property. They already have the paint color, and they already had a heads up that the tenants was leaving ahead of time. So that makes all that a lot quicker. And again, the 2 years free property management plus the 3-month guarantee provides a lot of assurance for our investors that they're going to be doing a good job and they're putting their money where the mouth is. So this is some of the details that we have for the 3-month rental rate guarantee. It's going to be written in your property management agreement. And again, it's designed for if a tenant isn't placed, you still get payment as if there was a tenant there for the first 3 months, which again, it's a huge incentive, puts a lot of confidence behind our investors as they make decisions. So one of the things that we touched upon earlier was just the military presence of Jacksonville. And so Jacksonville has the largest Navy port on the Atlantic Ocean.
Nice.
It also has 5 other military installations there in Jacksonville. The military presence in Jacksonville is huge, huge. If you just look at the data, have my camera in the way, close to 100,000 employees total, 75 active duty, and over 90 veterans. So what that means is that there's a very large military population in Jacksonville, and they're often the best types of tenants. Why? Because if they're on a Navy boat for half the year, they can't possibly damage the rental unit.
Sure.
So what we've done is we've actually reached out to our armed services and their housing division, and we put together a plan to basically have a military rental program for them. So this basically says, and so the main thing is that it's a huge marketing tool for your unit, as your properties are being now displayed in front of them as a housing option. So they can choose to live on the base, they could choose to live on the barracks somewhere nearby, or they can live in more civilian or residential housing like this. So these properties will appear on a list as an option for them to pay. The other benefit is that the payment for housing comes directly from the military. It goes straight to you. So it's a direct deposit. It gets directly withdrawn from their paycheck. It goes straight to the housing provider. So it goes straight. And we're looking for service military personnel that's going to have 7 months or more of active duty left in their contract. And if they want to stay longer, they can. They'll just have to demonstrate they can make three times the amount in income on that rental unit. And the housing allowance is automatic payment. So it's like Section 8, but like way
On
better.
steroids. Yeah.
Right? Like way better. This is like the
Yeah.
ideal clientele would be military personnel. And that's exactly who we have this marketing program with.
Sure.
So we are short on time, but I do want to go ahead and touch upon this quickly. Mario, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, we can do it real quick. These are some of the questions that we get all the time. Hey Mario, what my insurance is going to be if I purchase one of these quads? Well, this is a living sample. This is an actual policy. I'm also going to show you the taxes on this unit. Now, the why seems to be so cheap, only $1,600 for the entire year. It's because you have to remember most of the coverage for the entire building lies within the HOA. So basically all the outside,
So Mario,
it's
let's say that
carried with
number
the
again.
HOA fees. Say that again?
1,600 for a 4-unit quadplex.
Correct. For 4 units, that's for the entire building. This is your hazard policy for the whole building, all 4 units. Correct. And that's just yearly policy, 1,500 and some change.
So that's lower than most single family homes.
Oh, it absolutely is.
Yeah. And so what you're saying is it's a lot cheaper because it's in an HOA that has their own policy and covers a lot of their claims.
Yeah, in essence, the HOA carries the general policy. Anything that could happen to the building, fire or what have you, it will be covered within the HOA. So in essence, this is only for the internal purposes. Say that a kitchen set on fire. Well, then that's what the policy will cover.
And again, this is coming from a client that recently closed with us. And so
correct. Yeah. Notice the address, and then you see that I also use the same units as an example when it comes to taxes. Okay, so this part right here, this part is super interesting. The first year, and this is sometimes hard to understand, the first year, although the building is in the ground, the taxes are going to be calculated based on vacant land, which is typically $50,000 or $60,000 per lot. So on your first year, as you purchase this unit, the taxes are going to be very, very little because, again, I get it because you see the building, it's there, you have tenants living in it, but then the taxes come out to be less than $800 or some change because you're being taxed as a vacant land. Now, what happens on year number 2 is we have to wait for the city to do the assessment. Basically, it's not an appraisal, it's a almost a drive-by appraisal, if you will, in the sense that, you know, the city doesn't look inside. The city is only going to establish a value for the building. Now, keep in mind, for instance, and this is a good sample, this is exactly one of these quads. We was able to get it for less than $1 million. And yet the assessed value is $400,000. So what does that mean? It means that taxes are going to be calculated as if the property was only worth $400,000. So basically, you're saving almost 2/3 of the investment when it comes to taxes.
Yeah, which we always say it'll be, you know, about 30% less than the actual purchase price.
Yes,
In this case, it's almost what 55% less
correct.
than the actual purchase price. And that's after the property was assessed, because you're also showing here that for 2023, it was just assessed as the raw land.
Roland, correct. So 2023 is raw land based on 50,000, and then as 2024 comes in, then will be an add-on from the lot and the building, 463,000. So exactly what you're saying. It's less than half of what the unit it's worth, and then that's actually good news. That's ideally
Oh,
what
no,
we
it's
want.
phenomenal news. And
Yes,
you know, it's worth noting that on our performance, we end up being very conservative. So we actually run the taxes based on the actual purchase price, which is
correct,
not what the city's gonna actually do. So
correct,
they're gonna run it based on the assessed value that's gonna be generally 30% less, in this case, about 55% less. And that only kicks in after the property has been reassessed at the improved property rate. So you could go a year and a half paying property taxes on just the raw land
correct,
until the actual new property taxes kick in.
correct. Yeah.
Again, and so it's funny because on the performance side, I can't forecast this, but this is like the reality of what ends up happening. And you know, there's a lot of benefits there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there you see your land value of 50,000.
Which is insane.
Yeah, and that's just simply normal. Always keep in mind that the assessed value is always going to run lower than the actual value of the unit. I mean, it will take probably, if I have to guess, 10 years for Jacksonville to believe that this is a building worth $1 million. But in 10 years, then the actuality is the building will be worth $2 million. This is what's going to happen. So always keep in mind nobody can buy a house based on the assessed value. It's what I'm trying to say. It's just simply, again, that's just simply a price that the city is going to put on it in order for us to pay taxes, you know, based on that amount. So it is definitely good news that our assessed value is always going to be less than the asking value of the property. And if you ever log in, like I said, 10 years from now, and you see that the county believes that the building is worth now 800,000, I assure you that it would easily be on sale for 1.5, $1.6 million. It's always that relationship.
All right. And then so whenever we work with our clients, one of the big benefits of buying a real estate is the tax benefits. And so there's 3 ways you can use tax deductions against your earned income. And so this happens a lot. We have a high net worth individual and you show them the cash flow, like, all right, that's cute. Then you show them the tax savings, and like now you get their attention right now. Because for a lot of people is their biggest expense is taxes. And so making a little bit more money is beneficial, but offsetting some costs are going to be huge. So the 3 ways you can save money on taxes is doing a standard depreciation. You can do accelerated depreciation, or in this case, we're showing you a cost segregation report. And here's the thing, because we're selling a brand new construction property, we know all the data to the property already. We know what the land value was. We know how many windows it had. We know the flooring. We know the materials. We know the age of everything. So we actually help you fill out a cost segregation report. And so I do this myself. It costs me about $480
Right.
to actually pay for the report, but we fill it in with you. So we give you all the information you need to fill it in. And the tax savings on every single family home, I end up saving about $13,000. That's not how much I'm reducing my earned income by. I'm actually saving. The amount that I get back is $13,000 for a 300K single family home. So if you do it for a larger quadplex like this, you're going to be close to that 50 to 60K range that you're getting back because of it. And it's one of the things that when you spend time in the investment world, a lot of times investors have a negative tax rate, right? Where they actually get paid back more money than they pay in taxes. And this is the way that they all do it. Some investors say, I got to buy one property every single year just to offset my taxes. And so if you have more questions about this, we'll be more than happy to sit with you and go through these examples with you and explain to you how it works. But this is the kind of service that we do with our investors. And so when we look at, we have three different options in Jacksonville at the moment. And so we have two different models. These are all both sold individually. And then we also have an entire community that we're selling as well. This is actually a package of 12 quadplexes that we're selling. That's a total of 48 units, all in one purchase. And so we have the purchase price there, the rental rates there. And it's worth saying that the rental rates come from our property management team. These aren't numbers that we're making up. These are numbers that they share with us. And when you go under contract with them, the property management agreement will say this same rental rate there as far as what they expect to get for the rental rate. So again, numbers come from them. We talked about the rate buy downs, talked about the free 2 years property management. And a lot of investors are having a hard time finding deals that cash flow. We don't have that problem. In fact, we're doing way better than cash flowing, right? We're doing a very good cash on cash. And so typically, when we're looking at these deals, we're looking at the total sum of the investment. So for example, if you're looking at stocks, all you're doing is saying, hey, I think I can sell this at another point for a higher amount. Well, real estate, you can do that as well. I can hold on to a property and sell it for a higher amount later on. That's trading, right? We can do both. We can trade real estate, we can trade stocks, same thing. You might decide you want to buy a treasury bill or a CD. Great. That will give you a certain rate of return. That's essentially your cash flow, your payments that you're receiving that way. So we can match those things. And again, they can't do those things in return. There's also two other major benefits that real estate offers that others can't. The other is the debt pay down. So if I have to buy a treasury bill, a stock, or any other gold, whatever it is, I got to put the full amount in there. I'm not taking advantage of any debt or any leverage. So there's no other people's money. It's all my money. So in real estate, I can use other people's money. I always jokingly say that every property you buy is 75% off. All you have to do is wait 30 years.
Yep.
Right? And that's it. So we have to calculate that cost as well. So it's a cash flow, it's a debt pay down, it's the equity. And the fourth part we just mentioned is the tax saving. So when you look at the GEI plus tax savings, you look at the total wealth that's created over 1 year. Oftentimes, that number in our performance is equivalent to the total money they took to buy the property.
To buy the property to begin with.
Yes. Yeah. So you're essentially getting your entire wealth back that same year. And then thereafter, it just keeps getting better and better over time. So that works across all three of these options here. Again, we have two models up in Southeast Jacksonville that are performing very well. And then we have an entire Quadplex community that we're selling there in the same area as well. That performs very well. So again, if you want to get more information about these opportunities, definitely reach out to us. We're more than happy to sit with you and have a more detailed conversation. And we can look through the entire performance together, and we can properly defend and explain each of the numbers that are listed there. But so that's one property. And so buying a quadplex almost inherently, if you're buying it using an investor loans, means a larger down payment. If you're buying it owner occupied, a lot easier to get the money for that down payment. But if you're buying it as an investment, it's a huge down payment. And a lot of people ask me, okay, so I make one investment and then I'm like, I can't do anything else. Right. And we explain, like, no, the whole point is we want to be able to make a smart investment, let time work on our behalf, and then go ahead and take advantage of that equity to buy more properties. I always say that when your properties can buy properties is when you become a grandparent. When your babies make babies, you're a grandparent. That's the goal in life. And so we see here is across the top, as we're seeing the market value go up every single year. In this case, we're using 8%. You might want to be more conservative and say 4%. We believe over the next couple of years, we are going to see 8%. But again, you can tweak it, not a problem. The point is we know that values will go up over time historically. We also see that the debt payment is being paid off every single month. These are your tenants paying down your mortgage. And so what we see combining both the equity and the debt pay down, we're seeing your equity position go up each and every year. So much so that over 5 years, you're going to have about $1 million in equity. And so what we're saying is you can do a cash out refi. And so when you do a cash out refi, you still own the property. You're still the owner of the property. What you're doing is you're getting another mortgage to cover the previous balance, and then you get to keep the difference. And that money that you keep, that's the difference between the original loan balance and the new one, you get to use however you want. And because it's not income, it's not taxable because technically it's borrowed money. So there's no taxes on borrowed money. So you get to keep it, you get to redeploy it however you want. If you look at the amount, over $618,000 you can get after a cash out refi while still owning the property. Well, now that's more than enough to go ahead and buy another one. In fact, you might be able to buy 2 more quadplexes. So in a span of 5 years, you could potentially own 12 units from a single purchase. And that's the power of real estate, that I can't do that with stock, I can't do that with gold, can't
No,
do
you
it with
can't.
anything else. And it's taking that comprehensive approach and putting everything together that makes this possible. And so this is a plan. So imagine you did this every couple of years. How quickly would it be to become a millionaire? Well, very quickly. One purchase can get you there.
Yeah, it's what we call the buy, rent, and repeat.
Right. Well, exactly. And this is called the income snowball.
Yeah.
Is at first well, I mean, you're buying a quadplex, you're starting big, but it's a significant amount that you're getting every month. But then it gets preposterous as time goes on. And one of the things that's important in real estate is let time work for you. Let it work on your behalf. But you have to make a decision now. You're never going to have a big fruit tree if you don't plant the seed today. So it's always looking at like, hey, like what's the best opportunity in my current market? And let me go ahead and take action, right? Let me keep deploying capital. So we went through pretty comprehensive review of the Jacksonville market, the quads. We explored why Jacksonville, why Florida, why it's challenging to find a good quad in Florida in general. And then we showed you the examples that are out there that are publicly available, and they're awful. Again, we're licensed agents, we're licensed brokers. We can sell you that garbage. We choose not to. Instead, what we do is we try to package deals together with builders that are already building the properties. Most of our inventory is within 3 months of being completed, and we package it together with preferred lenders, preferred title companies, preferred insurance companies, and we provide it into a streamlined turnkey process. So if you wanted to learn more about how we can help you identify, purchase, and manage your next property, the next step is to go to buildtorrent.com, click on the link. You can either schedule a investor consultation or click to get our inventory, and one of our agents will reach out to you. But the best way to learn more is to schedule a investor consultation. We'll happily run through all the options with you. We'll like to learn about your background, understand your goals a bit more, walk you through the inventory sheet that we have, and even the performa. And then what we do is typically on that second call is when we do the deep dive. That's when we're going deep into the numbers, sharing with you who your partners are, and walking you through the entire process. Our goal is to educate you and give you all the information that you need to make a proper decision. You'll know within 2 phone calls whether we're a bunch of idiots or whether this is a phenomenal opportunity for you and your family. But the next step is to go to buildtorrent.com and schedule a consultation. Feel free to reach out to Mario or myself, and we'll be more than happy to assist. And without further ado, do enjoy the rest of your day, and God bless. Take care.
There's quite a few questions on the
Yeah, so we got
I'm
Curdy.
answering one of
Yeah, I'm not sure if you still want Curdy.
I'm answering this one here.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and answer that.
Yeah, I'm actually answering the insurance question that he had.
Okay, so yeah, feel free to reach out to him directly. Actually, he is there. So we did talk about the insurance a little bit, and so we actually on our performa actually have it a little bit higher than what the actual numbers is. And
Yeah,
so
a lot higher.
yeah, so we actually get a lot cheaper insurance rates because of where the property is located within the HOA that cover a lot of expenses. It's also brand new. And so brand new means it's built on a higher elevation. It also has brand new windows. You get the wind mitigation discounts as well.
Exactly.
It's the latest
New roof.
and codes. Yeah, it's just everything is new. So insurance are more expensive nationwide or internationally because of the cost of labor and the cost of material has gone up. So the replacement cost of the property is more expensive. But actually Jacksonville has very low rates compared to the rest of the state of Florida. And newer builds are going to have lower rates than existing properties.
Someone is asking if they can have access to the presentation later.
Yeah, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna release this on YouTube, and so we'll be able to post it there, and that'll be the best way to get the full presentation. And I would recommend scheduling a session with one of us, and we'll be more than happy to run it through you directly. Cool. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and edit this, and we'll put it on YouTube and Facebook and all the other platforms, and we'll go ahead and connect there. Mario, thank you for your time
Oh,
tonight,
thank you. Thank you.
and we'll connect again soon. Thank you.